Opening scene. Immediate hook. The tray slipped from her hands when she heard the words. "You're done here. Hand over your apron." For a second, it was like the clatter of plates and clinking of cutlery inside the diner just stopped. Silence fell over the room, thick and heavy. All eyes turned toward the counter. Jasmine stood frozen behind the register, hands still trembling from the post-breakfast rush, her face flushed, her mouth dry. Her boss, Barry, towered over her with the same smug frown he always wore when he felt powerful, like a man who found joy in control. "I said, you're done," he repeated, louder this time. "You fed someone who didn't pay. You stole from the business. That's theft." It took Jasmine a second to catch her breath. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "I paid for that meal," she said quietly. "It came out of my own tips," Barry scoffed. "Doesn't matter, it's the principle." In the corner booth, an older man in a torn army jacket sat hunched over a plate of eggs. His hands shook slightly as he gripped his fork. He hadn't touched the food since the yelling began. He looked down now, his weathered face red with shame. "He's a vet," Jasmine added, more firmly this time. "He hasn't eaten in days. He didn't ask for charity." Barry leaned in so close she could smell the stale coffee on his breath. "That's not your call to make. You want to play hero? Do it somewhere else. You're fired." Her chest tightened. Around her, the other waitresses and cooks stood silent. No one spoke. No one defended her. Jasmine pulled off her apron with shaking hands. She laid it on the counter like she was burying something. She didn't cry, not in front of Barry. She nodded once, looked over at the vet, and turned toward the door. As she stepped outside into the freezing morning, the bitter wind slapped her across the face. She didn't even have her coat. She'd left it in the staff room, but she kept walking. Earlier that week, 2 days ago, Jasmine had taken the long way home with her 10-year-old son, Malik. They were walking from school because she couldn't afford gas for the week, and the car had been sitting lifeless in the motel parking lot. "Mom," Malik said, swinging his backpack, "can I ask you something?" "Sure, baby. Are we poor?" She paused. There it was. The question she'd spent years trying to dodge. She looked at his face, so innocent and open. She wanted to lie to protect him. Instead, she said, "We don't have much, but we have enough, and I've got you. So I think we're doing just fine." He smiled, but she could see the sadness underneath it. Jasmine had been working at the Silver Spoon Diner for a year. It wasn't glamorous. Chipped plates, flickering lights, Barry's bad temper. But it paid the bills, barely. She was still juggling online classes, trying to finish her associate's degree in social work. She wanted more. For Malik, for herself, for the version of her life that didn't end in a run-down motel with flickering heat. So when the old man came in the next morning, she noticed him right away. His boots were duct-taped together, his coat soaked from the rain. He smelled faintly of whiskey and street air, but there was something solemn about him, like he had lived through things others couldn't imagine. He asked for coffee. She brought him eggs and toast instead, quietly, discreetly. She paid for it herself. It cost her half her tips for the morning. She didn't expect praise. She just didn't expect to be punished. Back to present. After getting fired, she walked home, clutching herself for warmth. The cold pierced through her like knives. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Malik. "Hey, Mom, you almost home? Did you pick up noodles?" "Mom?" She didn't reply. What could she say? That she'd lost the only job keeping them afloat? She sat on a bench outside the bus stop and buried her face in her hands. The sting of humiliation was sharp. Her breath came out in shaky clouds. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" a soft voice asked. It was the vet, Jasmine. Looked up, startled. His face looked different in the daylight, older but kind. There was pain in his eyes, not just from her situation but his own. A shared pain, understood without explanation. "I got fired because of you," she said, too tired to hide it. "I didn't ask for anything. I know. It wasn't your fault. He nodded slowly. Still, I owe you. No, she said, firmly. You don't. There was a silence between them, the kind that doesn't need words. Then he said, What's your name? Jasmine. He extended a shaking hand. Walter. Walter Hayes. She took it, and he walked away. The motel. That night, Jasmine sat on the edge of the bed while Malik watched cartoons on low volume. She had a notepad in her lap and a pen in her hand. She was trying to write out their new budget, but it wasn't working. Too many red numbers, too many things she couldn't fix. Rent due Friday. Electricity balance, $42. Car still dead. Phone. Bill next week, fridge half empty. She buried her head in her arms. She didn't even know where to start. The next morning, 8:12 a.m., there was a knock at the motel room door. She assumed it was the front desk with a warning about their overdue payment. She braced herself for embarrassment. When she opened it, she froze. Outside stood 6 men in uniform, military, army by the look of it, neatly pressed, straight posture, faces marked by years of service and loss, and right in the middle of them, Walter. Except now, he looked transformed. He was clean-shaven. He stood straighter. He looked like someone who had once led others into war and never let them down. Jasmine, he said, these are my brothers. She opened her mouth but couldn't speak. One of the men stepped forward and handed her a folded flag, a military burial flag. Another handed her a sealed envelope. What is this? She asked, her voice small. Walter smiled gently. You fed me when I was invisible. Most people don't even look at us anymore, but you did more than see me. You gave without asking. That matters. Jasmine slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a check. She gasped. I can't accept this. You can, Walter said. It's not charity, it's honor. We pooled it together. Soldiers, veterans, friends, brothers. Some of us had nothing, but gave anyway. Because someone like you don't let people go hungry. You deserve better. She felt her knees buckle and sat on the bed, the check in her lap. Tears slid down her cheeks. She hadn't cried in front of strangers since Malik was born. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Walter stepped forward, then hesitated. There's more, Jasmine. What do you mean? Another man, the tallest among them, stepped up. His name tag read Lieutenant Colonel R. Mitchell. Walter's not just a vet. Before he could finish, a loud voice echoed from the hallway. Jasmine! It was the motel manager. What the hell's going on out here? You're not allowed visitors like this. This isn't a parade ground. He was storming up the hallway with a clipboard in one hand and a red warning notice in the other. Walter turned calmly to Jasmine. We need to talk. Inside. Now. Something shifted in Jasmine's chest. A feeling she hadn't had in a long time. Not fear, not shame, it was something else entirely. Secrets behind the uniform Jasmine stood frozen in the doorway. The weight of the check in her hand, the sight of 6 uniformed strangers in her tiny motel room, and the shrill voice of the motel manager, echoing in the hallway. It felt surreal, like she'd stepped into someone else's story. Jasmine. I said no unauthorized guests. The manager barked again, his eyes narrowing at the soldiers. This isn't a charity shelter. I don't care if they're military. This ain't no barracks. Walter's expression hardened. For a man she had just seen hunched and trembling in a diner booth, he now radiated quiet command. He stepped out into the hall, straightened his spine, and addressed the manager with a calm authority that seemed to silence even the buzzing overhead lights. We're not staying, Walter said evenly. We just came to speak with her. Respectfully. The manager scoffed. She's behind on rent. One more disturbance and she's out. This isn't the place for Bill, came a voice from behind the group. The manager turned and paled. Lieutenant Colonel R. Mitchell stepped forward and removed his cap. I served with your brother Robert, 3rd Battalion, Fort Bragg. He was a good man. Bill's bluster vanished in an instant. Robbie, you knew my brother? Yes, sir. And I imagine if he was still here, he wouldn't be proud of how you just spoke to this woman. The manager swallowed hard, then nodded, muttered something about a quick visit only, and retreated. Jasmine stood in stunned silence, watching the scene unfold. These men, who were they really? Walter turned to her gently. May we come in now? She stepped aside, wordlessly, and they filed in, each nodding respectfully as they passed. Inside the motel room, Malik had frozen with his mouth half open, a spoon of cereal paused mid-air. His eyes widened as the soldiers entered. Are they here to arrest us? He whispered. Jasmine knelt by him. No, baby, it's okay. They're friends. One of the younger soldiers, a dark-skinned man with a kind smile, crouched beside Malik. You like army stuff? He asked. Malik nodded slowly. The soldier grinned and pulled a small patch from his sleeve. This was mine. Want it? Malik took it like it was gold. Meanwhile, Walter settled into the only chair in the room. Jasmine perched on the edge of the bed, nerves swirling. You said there was more, she said. Well, tell me. Walter exhaled deeply, and the room fell quiet. My name is Walter Hayes, he began. Retired First Sergeant, U.S. Army. I served 3 tours overseas, saw too many brothers die, came back to a country that didn't quite know what to do with us. He paused, his eyes distant. I was decorated, honored, then I was forgotten. I lost my wife to cancer 6 years ago. Lost my home 3 years ago. PTSD hit me harder than any bullet ever did. I lived in shelters, cars, alleys. But what broke me wasn't all that. He looked straight at Jasmine. What broke me was feeling invisible. The silence in the room deepened until you... Jasmine's eyes burned with tears. I just gave you breakfast. No, he said softly. You gave me dignity. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell stepped forward. We were searching for Walter for weeks. He fell off the radar again, disappears when the pain gets too loud. But when this video surfaced yesterday, we found him. Jasmine blinked. What video? Mitchell pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. A diner security video played. Grainy footage. Her sliding a plate of food in front of Walter, pouring him coffee, Barry yelling, her being fired. She covered her mouth. Who filmed this? Someone posted it anonymously. The caption said, "Fired for feeding a vet." It went viral in hours. 500,000 views. The military community noticed. Fast. Jasmine's heart pounded. I didn't even know. Walter smiled. That's the thing about good deeds, the real ones. They don't need an audience, but sometimes the world sees them anyway. A new offer. Mitchell stepped forward again. Jasmine, I know this might feel overwhelming, but we came here for more than gratitude. He pulled a manila envelope from his satchel and handed it to her. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a full-time job offer at Hope Forward, a veteran reintegration non-profit, salary, benefits, flexible hours. I don't have a degree. Yet, she whispered, I haven't even finished school. We know, Mitchell said, but we've seen how you treat people. The rest, we can train. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was just a waitress, she said. Walter looked her in the eyes. No, Jasmine, you were the one person in that diner who remembered I was human. A strange coincidence. Just as she was catching her breath, the youngest soldier, Peters, frowned at her name on the job application. You said your last name is Graham. Yes. He turned to Walter, puzzled. Wasn't that your wife's maiden name? Walter stiffened. Jasmine blinked. My mother's name was Linda Graham, but she died before I turned 10. Walter's eyes narrowed, stunned. Linda, from Tallahassee? Her breath hitched. Yes. He stood slowly, voice shaking. Linda was my sister. The room tilted. Jasmine stared at him. What? Walter covered his mouth, sat down again hard. I haven't seen her since '93. She left the state. I didn't even know she'd had a child. No one told me anything about family, Jasmine whispered. I grew up in foster care after she died. He began to weep, quietly, deeply. You're my niece. Suddenly, the story changes. The soldiers stood in stunned silence. One of them muttered, "You gotta be kidding." Walter pulled out a folded, weathered photo from his wallet. A young Linda, smiling, radiant. Jasmine looked just like her. "It's you," he said. "I see her in your face." Jasmine's hands trembled. Her mind raced. "I thought I had no one," she whispered. "You do now." Hours later, they all left eventually, except Walter. He insisted on staying nearby in a motel room of his own, just in case she needed anything. That night, Jasmine lay, awake, staring at the ceiling. Her life had turned upside down in 24 hours. Fired, found, offered a job. Reunited with family she didn't know existed, but the craziest part wasn't the soldiers, it was the feeling in her chest, a flicker of hope. Then her phone buzzed again, a text from a blocked number. "They think you're safe now. They're wrong. Ask Walter about 2008. Her skin went cold. She sat up, heart pounding. She looked toward the window, pulled the curtain slightly. A car she didn't recognize sat across the street. Engine running. Lights off. The year. He tried to forget the text. Haunted Jasmine all night. They think you're safe now. They're wrong. Ask Walter about 2008. She didn't sleep. Every creak of the motel floorboards made her flinch. Every flicker of headlights outside pulled her out of the half-sleep she drifted into. By 6 a.m., she was sitting in the room's single chair, still in yesterday's clothes, clutching her phone like it might buzz again. But it didn't. The confrontation at 7:12 a.m. There was a soft knock at her door. She jumped. "Jasmine!" Walter's voice came through gently. "I brought breakfast." She opened the door slowly. Walter stood holding 2 takeout containers and a coffee tray. His tired eyes brightened when he saw her, but his smile faded. Quickly, when he saw her face, "You didn't sleep," he said. "I got a text," she said quietly. He stepped in quickly and set the food down. "From who?" "I don't know. Blocked number, but it said something about 2008. Said I should ask you." Walter's body froze. Just like that, he was no longer the warm uncle figure from yesterday. His jaw tightened, eyes darkened. "Let me see it," he said. She handed him the phone. He read the message 3 times before lowering the phone. Then he sighed long and slow. "I hoped I'd never have to talk about that again," he muttered. The story of 2008, he sat across from her. The mood had shifted. Gone was the man who had cried when he found out they were family. Now he looked like someone carrying a secret that could tear everything apart. In 2008, I was stationed in Afghanistan. It was my 3rd tour. I was in charge of a unit running supply chains to remote outposts, he began, staring into his coffee. One of our missions went sideways. A local informant sold us out. We got ambushed. 3 men died. One of them, Corporal Jason Duke, was only 19. He was the youngest in our unit. Bright kid, smart. Too smart to be out there. He paused. We tried to retrieve their bodies. It turned into a firefight. In the chaos, I made a decision. Jasmine leaned in. "What kind of decision?" "I left someone behind." Her blood chilled. "I thought we were out of time. Air support was minutes away. I had injured men. I thought Duke was dead." But he wasn't. Jasmine's hands curled into fists. "You left him to die?" "I thought he was dead." Walter snapped, then immediately looked ashamed. "I replay that moment every day, the screaming, the dust, the gunfire. I made the wrong call." "What happened after?" "We went back for him, but he was gone, vanished. His body was never found, no trace. The army declared him dead in absentia." "And you got to come home," she said coldly. Walter swallowed. "They launched an internal investigation. I was cleared. technically, but the guilt ate me alive. I retired early, lost everything. Jasmine stared at him. Why would someone text me now about this? Walter shook his head. I don't know, but whoever it is, they know more than they should. The car outside. They both looked through the curtains. The dark car was still there, parked, unmoving, but Jasmine knew it hadn't been there the past few days. Walter stepped back from the window. Get Malik dressed. We're not staying here. The safe house by noon. They were relocated, thanks to Colonel Mitchell, to a secure facility used to house at-risk veterans. It looked like a normal suburban home on the outside, but the interior was fortified. Bulletproof windows, surveillance, a panic button. Malik didn't understand why they had to move again. Jasmine told him it was a secret soldier hotel, and he was thrilled. But inside, her heart was unraveling. She kept hearing the words, "Ask Walter about 2008, and something didn't sit right. Digging deeper, while Malik napped that afternoon, Jasmine sat with a borrowed laptop. If someone knew about 2008, maybe it was someone from Walter's past. She started digging into records of the ambush in Afghanistan. After 20 minutes, she found it, Operation Dusklight, March 14th, 2008, Kandahar Province. 3 soldiers, KIA-1. Mere Corporal Jason Duke. A picture was included in a memorial post. Jasmine stared at the young man's face. He looked so alive, wide-eyed, confident. The kind of guy who would have helped carry a stranger's groceries or tutor a friend's kid. Beneath the post, a comment from anonymous user 47 made her pause. You left him. You all left him. Some debts aren't forgotten. She clicked the user, no info, no other comments, but it had been posted just 4 days ago. She felt cold again. Another message. Her phone buzzed. Another blocked number. You're in deeper than you think. This wasn't just about feeding a vet. Keep digging. Start with Barry's diner. Barry, her old boss, the one who fired her. What does Barry have to do with this? She whispered. She hadn't spoken to him since the day she was fired. She called the diner's number. Disconnected. Her heart sped up. She found an article online, dated yesterday. Local diner owner hospitalized after apparent break-in and assault. Barry Caldwell, 53, is in critical condition after being found unconscious in his office early Monday morning. Authorities. Suspect foul play. She dropped the phone. Barry was attacked, she whispered to herself. Someone's tying up loose ends. Walter's panic. When Walter returned later that evening, she confronted him with the article. His face went white. They're silencing people. Who? She snapped. Who are they, Walter? What did you do? What aren't you telling me? I told you everything I know. No, she said firmly. You told me what you wanted me to know, not what they could kill to hide. Walter looked down, then said, There was a journal. Duke kept it, wrote in it daily. I read it once. He had suspicions, thought someone in our unit was working with the enemy. Jasmine stared at him. You never told the army that? They would have buried it. They bury everything. I buried it too. Until now. The final blow. That night, Jasmine opened her email to find a new message. Subject, he's not who you think. He is. Body, attached is a file. It contains Walter's classified testimony from 2008. Read it. See what he left out. She hesitated, then clicked. A PDF opened. Top secret. Internal interview. First Sergeant Walter Hayes. The transcript chilled her to the bone. Walter hadn't just left Jason Duke behind. According to the document, he had ordered the retreat before confirming Duke's condition and, worse, had ignored a direct radio call from Duke begging for help. Duke, radio. I'm hit but not gone. Don't leave me. Please. I repeat, do not leave me. Hayes, radio. We're pulling out. It's too late. The interview ended with Walter stating, we had to move. Collateral loss is part of command. Jasmine dropped the laptop. Tears burned her eyes. Walter had lied. He didn't fail to save Duke. He chose not to. And now someone was coming to make him pay. Betrayal in uniform. The moment Jasmine finished reading Walter's classified transcript, a shift occurred deep inside her. Everything, the tears, the hugs, the stories about guilt, now seemed like layers of performance, carefully stacked to shield a single, brutal truth. Walter hadn't failed to save Jason Duke. He had abandoned him. The hollow man Walter returned late that night carrying groceries and fast food. Malik ran up to him with a bright smile, hugging his waist. Jasmine stayed still, seated on the couch, her hands clenched beneath a throw blanket. "I got your favorite," Walter said. "Chili fries." She stared at him, silent. "You okay?" "I read the transcript." His body froze. The paper bag crinkled loudly in his grip. He slowly lowered it onto the table. "Who sent it?" "Someone who knows the truth." He sighed and sat across from her. "I didn't lie, Jasmine. I just didn't tell everything." "You let him die." "I was trying to protect my team." "No, you were trying to protect yourself." Her voice shook. "That boy begged you. He was alive, Walter. And you walked away." Malik looked up from the coloring book he'd been scribbling on and frowned. "Mommy, why are you mad?" She took a deep breath and softened her face. "I'm not, baby. Go play in the other." "Room for a bit, okay?" Malik left reluctantly. Then she turned back to Walter. "I need to know everything. No more edits." Walter's shoulders sank. "Fine. But when I finish, you'll understand why this is bigger than you think. The real operation. Dusklight Jason Duke wasn't just a soldier. He was the son of a whistleblower, a former CIA contractor named Henry Duke, who was assassinated in 2005 after exposing a corruption ring inside the U.S. defense supply chain. Jasmine's eyes widened. "Jason knew things," Walter continued. "He told me once his dad gave him a USB drive before he died. Said it had proof, names, transactions, photos, people who were still active. He kept it in his boot at all times. And when the ambush happened," she whispered, "I think it wasn't just random. I think someone inside knew he had it and tipped off the enemy. Jason may have survived the attack, but whoever found him probably found the drive and buried it." Walter nodded. "When we realized Jason was missing, we searched, yes, but not too hard. We were ordered to stand down. Higher-ups were scared. I obeyed. You obeyed. Oh, cowards! I was one of them." Silence thickened the air. The name drops that night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. Instead, she read everything she could about Jason Duke and his father. Names came up again and again. Colonel Bryce, Martin Laird, and most chillingly, Barry Caldwell, her old boss at the diner. She dug deeper. Barry had served in logistics support during 2008, at the same base as Walter. A new realization slammed into her. Barry knew about Dusklight, and someone had just tried to silence him, the stranger at the fence. The following morning, Jasmine went outside to breathe. A fenced backyard offered a brief illusion of freedom. Birds chirped overhead. A soft breeze carried the scent of earth and pine. Then she saw him, a man, across the fence, standing, watching her. He wore a baseball cap, a faded army jacket and mirrored sunglasses. He gave a short nod, then carefully held up a photo. Even from a distance, Jasmine saw what it was: Jason Duke, smiling in uniform. She stepped closer. "I know who you are," he said softly, "and I know what you've been told. But you haven't heard my side. Yet?" Her heart thundered. "Who are you?" He smiled slightly. "I'm the man they left behind. The ghost who lived. It didn't feel real." Jasmine had to brace herself against the fence post. You're alive." "Barely," he said. "But yeah. I survived the ambush, captured, tortured, escaped. Took me 5 years to get out of that hellhole." Her mouth opened and closed. "Why didn't you come forward?" "Because by the time I made it back, they'd already buried the truth." Walter had testified. My death certificate was signed. My mother was dead. My name was scrubbed from every official document. They erased you, and I let them, until I found the drive again. Jasmine's eyes locked onto his. The USB drive? He nodded. It was still in the boot, buried where I fell. Locals found it, traded it. I tracked it down last year. And... "No, you're going after the people who tried to kill you. Not just them," he said. "Everyone who covered it up. Everyone who profited from the silence." She took a deep breath. "Why me?" "Because you gave a stranger a meal when no one else would. You have a good heart, Jasmine. And because Walter's not the only one being watched. You are now, too." A terrible choice. Back inside, Jasmine paced while Jason waited outside. Walter sat silently on the couch. "He's alive," she said, pointing toward the back window. "The man you left. He's standing in our yard." Walter didn't speak. He knows about Barry, about the drive, about everything. He wants to go public. He says you'll be the first to fall. Walter swallowed hard. "Then I deserve it." She stopped pacing. He looked up at her, eyes red. "I deserve to fall, Jasmine. I failed. I lied. I betrayed my code, my country." "You betrayed a boy, a human being." Walter stood slowly. "He won't stop until everyone's exposed. That includes me. If this is how it ends, so be it. I need to know something," she said. "Why did you agree to testify against him?" Walter looked away. "Because I was offered a deal. My silence. For immunity. And my daughter, your mother, was sick at the time. They promised to help. Hospital bills, quiet transfers. I thought I was doing it for her." Tears filled her eyes. "She died anyway." "I know. A dangerous plan that night. Jason gave her a flash drive." "It's all here," he said. "Bank transfers, names, missions, Walter's full deposition, and more importantly, a list of living witnesses who were paid to keep quiet." "What do you want me to do with it?" she asked. "You decide. You can stay out of this, take your boy, start fresh. And let you go after them alone?" He hesitated. "I don't want blood, just truth." "But they're already trying to kill people," she reminded him. "Barry's in a coma. My house was ransacked. We're not safe." "No," he agreed. "But you're not powerless." The betrayal just before dawn. Jasmine stepped outside to clear her head. The sky was pink and sleepy. She didn't notice Walter behind her until she heard the back door creak open. She turned. He was holding a phone. "I made the call," he said quietly. Her stomach dropped. "What call?" "They're coming to take him. I gave them his location. You..." "What?" Walter looked sick. "If I let him go free, everything I've tried to rebuild, everything gets destroyed." "You just sentenced him again." "Better that than letting him leak something that kills more people." She stepped back like he'd slapped her. "You coward." "I had to." Jasmine looked toward the trees, but Jason was already gone. The panic button, it happened fast. Minutes later, black SUVs roared into the driveway. Armed men swarmed the house. One of them, a tall man with ice-blue eyes, shoved a photo into Jasmine's. "Face, have you seen this man?" It was Jason. "No," she lied. "Never seen him before." The man narrowed his eyes. "He's dangerous." "Funny," she replied coldly. "That's exactly what they said about Walter, before they buried his truth." The man's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. Not anymore. The drive that could burn down a nation. The air around the house still vibrated with the tension left behind by the federal raid. Jasmine hadn't moved in hours. The flash drive, Jason, gave her rested in her palm like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Walter was gone. After tipping off the feds and realizing what he'd done, he disappeared. No goodbye, no note. Just guilt, vanished into the wind. Jasmine felt the walls closing in. She hadn't seen Jason since the SUVs tore down the road in the early dawn, but she knew he was still out there, and now the fire was in her hands. A message in the mirror. That night, While brushing her teeth, Jasmine noticed something strange taped behind the bathroom mirror. It was barely visible through the steam. A folded piece of paper stuck with clear tape. She peeled it off and opened it. Scrawled in all caps was, "A note, if you're reading this, you've been compromised. Trust nobody. The drive isn't safe. Go to him." At the bottom, there was a name. Corbin Sawyer, Sierra Base, Telluride, Colorado. Jasmine stared at the note, her heart pounding. Jason had left her a backup plan. The stranger on the porch. The next morning, Jasmine packed a small bag, kissed Malik's sleeping head, and left him with her neighbor, Mrs. Luna. "I'll be back before dinner," she lied. She slid the flash drive into her boot, just like Jason once had, and stepped outside, and froze. A man sat on her porch. He wore a battered denim jacket and a military beanie. One eye was milky white with a scar running through it. He looked like he'd walked through war, and kept walking. "You're Jasmine?" he asked. "Depends. Who are you?" "Name's Calder Briggs. I used to run recon for Sawyer." He paused, then added, "Jason sent me." She didn't speak. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to get you to safety. You're in deep now, and they know you have the drive." "How do I know I can trust you?" He smirked. "Because I had the same drive. They took everything from me for it. Wife, kid, honor. I want them to burn too." She nodded. "Let's go." The journey to Sierra Base. The drive to Colorado took nearly 12 hours. They traveled off-grid, back roads, cash-only gas stations, no phones. Briggs filled in the gaps along the way. Corbin Sawyer's a retired intelligence analyst, used to run surveillance operations out of Europe. He trained Jason's father. When Henry Duke was assassinated, Sawyer went underground. Swore never to work for the government again. So why would he help now? Because Henry Duke saved his life once, and he never forgot. They arrived just before midnight. Sierra Base wasn't a military installation anymore. It was an abandoned Cold War listening station tucked into the mountains, now more bunker than base. Corbin Sawyer met them at the door with a shotgun. He was in his 70s, his hair pure silver, but his stance was military straight. "If been expecting you," he said without warmth. The secrets within, inside. The bunker was a labyrinth of old radios, satellite dishes, maps, and shelves of files. Everything buzzed with an eerie quiet, like it was waiting to come alive. Jasmine handed Sawyer the drive. He plugged it into a dust-covered terminal and scanned its contents. After 10 minutes, he turned around, his face pale. This is worse than I thought." "What do you mean?" Jasmine asked. "There's not just evidence of the ambush setup and the cover-up. This links high-ranking military officials, contractor firms, even elected officials to illegal arms sales, fake missions and targeted assassinations. Jason's father compiled it all, and his son died, or nearly died, trying to get it to the right people." He looked at her. "If this goes public, it won't just bring down a few generals. It could ignite global investigations, the kind that get people vanished." "Then let's release it," Jasmine said, her voice steady. "Let the world see." Sawyer's eyes met hers. "You understand what you're risking?" "Yes," she said. "Everything. The trap is sprung." Later that night, while Jasmine slept, Sawyer and Briggs worked to create a secure digital leak. They planned to send copies of the files to major newspapers, military watchdog groups, and international human rights organizations simultaneously, ensuring that no one agency could silence it. But someone else was already watching. They never heard the drone, just the sudden buzz, then the explosion. The side wall of the bunker blew. Inward in a burst of fire and smoke, Jasmine was thrown from her bed. Dust filled the air. Sirens wailed. She scrambled to her feet, coughing. "Briggs! Sawyer!" Briggs emerged, bleeding from the scalp, dragging Sawyer behind him. "There! Here!" he yelled. "They found us!" Jasmine grabbed the drive, shoved it down her boot, and helped carry Sawyer out through a back tunnel. The last transmission. The three of them emerged into the cold mountain night. Snowflakes swirled under the red emergency lights behind them. Helicopters rumbled above. Sawyer collapsed. "I'll hold them here," he gasped. "Buy you time. Get to the station. Upload the files." "No. Go!" Jasmine hesitated just a second too long. Then she ran. Briggs led her through trees and snowdrifts to a satellite uplink station a mile away. It was old but still functional. One of the last outposts that Sawyer used for underground comms. He shoved her into the seat. "You've got 10 minutes before they track us." Jasmine plugged in the drive. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She selected the targets: media, watchdogs, senators, anonymous drop boxes. A loading bar appeared. Uploading. 2%. She heard the hum of a drone in the distance. "Faster," Briggs growled. "Uploading. 28%. Gunfire popped behind them. Briggs pulled out a pistol and moved to the doorway. "Hold them off," she cried. "I've done worse with less. Uploading 71%. Then a voice behind her. "Step away from the computer." She turned. A man in black combat gear stood inside the cabin, rifle aimed at her. She raised her hands, but behind the man, something moved. Bang! The man dropped like a rag doll. Jason Duke stood in the doorway, smoking gun in hand. "Miss me?" "Truth goes live." "Upload complete," Jasmine whispered. She hit send. In that moment, across the world, screens lit up with the headline, "Breaking. Military whistleblower reveals massive conspiracy in leaked classified files." Within minutes, the drive's contents were mirrored and downloaded by thousands. It was too late to stop it. The truth was out. The names, the missions, the betrayals, all of it. The aftermath. They didn't go home. Jason, Jasmine, and Briggs disappeared into the wind. Sawyer didn't make it. Walter was found 2 days later, surrendering to military police with a signed confession in hand. The leak triggered chaos, resignations, arrests, emergency hearings. But also protests, reforms, and families finally learning the truth about their sons and daughters. Barry Caldwell woke from his coma. And Jasmine. She returned one quiet morning to pick up Malik. She held him tighter than ever. When Mrs. Luna asked where she'd been, she simply smiled and said, "Just cleaning up a mess someone else left behind." The fire, the trial, and the freedom. The world had changed. The leak Jasmine uploaded from the snowy satellite shack spread like wildfire. Journalists from London to Sydney, New York to Cape Town dug deep into the data. Social media exploded with hashtags, faces of the betrayed, files of the dead. Secret missions turned headlines. For days, Jasmine stayed hidden in a cabin deep in the Rockies with Malik, Jason, and Briggs. But peace never felt more fragile. She knew it wouldn't last. The ghost in the news one morning, Jasmine turned on an old radio. Military contractor Lockmere Global saw its CEO arrested this morning in connection with the largest military corruption scandal in decades. Another voice. The president has vowed sweeping reforms. Anonymous footage shows Jasmine Calloway, a former waitress, possibly connected to the initial upload. Her heart skipped. They knew her name now. "Do you want to run again?" Jason asked softly. She shook her head. "No. I've spent too long hiding, feeding people quietly, watching them suffer. This time, I need to stand, facing the world." Jasmine reached out to a small, independent journalist group she trusted, one that had protected whistleblowers in the past. She agreed to an exclusive interview. She told them everything. About Barry Caldwell, the homeless vet, and the ambush. About being fired. About the flash drive. About Walter. And most of all about Jason Duke and the hell he had survived for a truth no one wanted to hear. The story aired worldwide under the headline, "The Waitress Who Fed a Veteran," and sparked a war for truth. And just like that, she became a symbol, not of war, of justice. Barry wakes up. 3 weeks after the leak, Jasmine got a call from a blocked number. "Hello?" A familiar voice, slow and gravelly, rasped back. "You really got him, didn't you?" Her knees gave out. "Barry?" "Still got half a brain left. Docs say I'm lucky. I say you're the lucky one. I owe you more than I can ever repay." She smiled through tears. "You already did, Barry. You gave me a reason to fight." He paused. "You gave me something too, Jazz. A reason to live. Walter's redemption. No one expected Walter to return, but he did. He testified before a federal committee, exposing everything. He knew, even his own betrayal. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He only asked for a chance to make it right. I tried to protect myself, he told them, but she protected others. That's the difference. He served time, 18 months in federal prison, but he never stopped speaking out afterward. He became a public advocate for whistleblowers. The man who once cracked under pressure now stood tall for others who feared the same fate. Briggs final. Mission Calder Briggs didn't stay in the shadows long. He joined a group that helped vets transition back to civilian life. Men like Barry, men like himself. He and Jasmine stayed in touch. One night she asked him, "Why didn't you disappear like the others?" He looked at her with tired, honest eyes, because sometimes the only way to heal from war is to serve. Again, but this time I get to choose who I fight for. The courtroom that shook the nation. The trial of the decade began 5 months later. High-ranking generals, corporate CEOs, one U.S. senator. In the sea of media and power suits, Jasmine took the stand. She stood before the court, no makeup, no lawyer whispering in her ear, just a woman with the truth. "I didn't plan any of this," she said. "I was a waitress who cared too much, who fed a man because he was hungry. That's it. And they tried to bury me for it." She looked at the judge. "And they nearly buried him, too. A soldier who did everything right." She glanced at Jason in the audience. He met her eyes, pride and pain in equal measure. "I didn't expose them for revenge," she said finally. "I did it, so no other mother has to bury her son under a lie." The verdict: the guilty were found guilty. Sentences ranged from 15 years to life. The president publicly thanked whistleblowers. A new law, the Veteran Truth Protection Act, was passed to protect soldiers and whistleblowers alike. And Jasmine, she went back to the diner, but this time she owned it. Full circle one warm spring evening, she stood at the counter of her little diner, now renamed Truth Table. Photos lined the wall, Barry in uniform, Jason and Malik building a birdhouse. A snapshot of Briggs with kids at a veterans shelter. The bell above the door jingled. A man walked in, old with a limp and a weathered army patch on his jacket. He looked around, confused. "Ma'am, I don't got much, but I heard this was a place you could eat, no questions asked." Jasmine smiled. "You heard right." She handed him a plate of hot food. Welcome home, final scene. Jasmine and Jason. That night Jasmine locked up, her hands trembling, only slightly as she turned the key. Outside, Jason waited. "I never said thank you," he said. "For what?" she asked, leaning into him. "For seeing me when the world didn't." She looked up at the stars, then at Malik, asleep in the truck. "And thank you," she whispered, "for giving me something worth fighting for." They stood in silence for a moment, bathed in moonlight. Then Jason said, "So, what now?" Jasmine smiled. "Now we live, loudly, honestly, and free." Final lesson, a soul-hitting ending. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom or a badge. It comes from a single choice, a choice to do the right thing when no one's watching. And sometimes losing everything is the only way to find who you really are. The end.